Second was the third, 10th bite of the apple. I don't know how many bites you had. Time glad
We
you
ate
posted.
the apple. We ate it.
Good Lord.
I'd like to call the order June 10th, 2019, of the East Ascension Drainage Meeting to order.
I just saw it seconds ago, I'm sorry.
All members are present.
Todd said you on the first.
Mr. Dawson, would you please lead us in the invocation followed by the pledge?
It's good.
Reverend Nelson.
Let's pray. Father, your grace is always sufficient. Your love is always open unto us, and we thank you for it. We thank you for the opportunity to do the people's business. And as we do so, we thank you for all the sacrifices been made before, the people giving their lives for freedom in this country, and we thank you for those that are currently serving and protect us, the armed forces, our police departments. We ask that you continue to watch over them. So as we come and do the people's business tonight, we thank you for your wisdom, which you said you would provide to anyone that asks freely. So tonight we ask. Again, we thank you for all that you've done for us, for Ascension Parish, and all the residents here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with Ms. Liz. Acceptance and approval of the May 6th meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Sadler, second by Mr. Lambert. With that, we'll move on to Chairman's report. I'd like to let all the commissioners know that we're gonna move very quickly with a field ordinance. I'd like to, and with a good definition of an RFQ, looking at the basins of New River, Henderson Bayou, Man Shack. This is just some thought, and I really like everyone to come together so we can get the rest of the parish looked at, so we can have a good field ordinance to bring back and protect the people of our parish.
Do you need that in the form of motion, sir?
I'd like to hear, I would like to hear also from a few, the commissioners, see if anyone, and I know Mr. Daniels has a few things he wants to add, but Mr. Dawson, you want to start?
I'll be glad
I'll
to.
make that motion.
You want to go before me, William?
I just wanted to say that I'd talked to Councilman Johnson already, and I was gonna put together that RFQ. There is an RFQ already coming out that's due July the 2nd for some drainage work as well, but he thought that we probably needed to go ahead and do another one just for those basins. So I can prepare that RFQ if you like.
So while you're there, I have some questions. So, I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish here, but I had a long conversation, Councilman Johnson and I, earlier. If we're looking for some...
Did I make a mistake walking up, Councilman?
Probably not. But if we're looking for a precise engineering recommendation on the limit on the fill, I don't see how we can come up with that. HNTB gave us a recommendation of 3 feet based on what was their judgment. But if you have zero net fill, then the actually coming up to it with a number of what the limit should be, an engineering evaluation, I don't understand the parameters that you look at.
Well, my understanding was that we wanted to do an RFQ. I don't know if you could actually arrive at a field number. That would be for the engineers to determine. But if I understand was similar to identifying future issues like we had with the D ordinance and making sure that we understood all those and having models for how the watershed would work.
So I'm all in favor of that, and I think people need to realize that that the floodway identification is what you're talking about,
Yes, sir.
and that's going to take quite some time. So all I'm saying is, if we're looking to do something with the floodplain management program, if we're looking at setting a limit or some other parameters, and we do floodway evaluation, part of that, then that's a year plus away. And I don't know what the floodway, I don't see the relationship between the floodways and the limit on the fill. I think that we as a council, we need to say, if we don't want any limit on fill, let's say it. But to go and we spent $282,000 to get an engineering evaluation. We got an engineering evaluation, we got a recommendation, and we didn't take it. So, do we want to go spend another $300,000 or $400,000 on another engineering evaluation?
That's y'all's prerogative.
Yeah, I
sir.
understand, and it is. This is our deal. But if somebody's telling me you're going to do identification of floodways, or you're going to do a model of the entire parish, I know it's going to be expensive. But I'm in favor of that. But I don't want to tie that to floodplain management, because that's not going to give us the answer of what we limit the fill to.
I'm very much in favor of the modeling. You can,
Yeah.
once you have the information to do the modeling, as we saw, they modeled the Amite River Basin. It's when you build something, you run that model, you'll be able to
Like
tell
I said,
exactly
I'm all for the model. I'm all for even a basin-wide model, a parish-wide model, whatever that is. But I think we're fooling ourselves, and we're just, again, pushing this decision down the road if we think that we're going to come up with a precise limit of what the fill should be.
Anyone else on Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, to kind of, remember, like he said, we had a long discussion. I'm not sure if we can get there or not, but I'd like to try. I think we owe it to our citizens to try to come up with something that says what we can and can't do in the parish in different areas, and look at the different floodplains like we've talked about for a long time, and get some recommendations that are hard and fast. In the interim, we may need to come up with something in the short term that holds us over until we get the study complete, and I'm looking forward to having discussions about that to try to see where we can land till we get this information back. I'd like to see the engineers try to tell us if there's something out there and push them hard to get some answers back. That's what are my thoughts on it.
Mr. Kluwan?
Yeah, once again, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Benny, and I brought it up last week that, I'd like to see a look at this whole east side of the parish for sure. If it's not, not the whole parish, but to where we see where we're going with the rest of the land. And it'll have a lot to do with what we look at within our ordinances. I also do agree with you, Bill, and your point that this could be long and drawn out. So I don't have a problem going back to the table and working with another ordinance that'll hold us steadfast until we can get the final numbers in. And I appreciate all the work you've done and everybody else that worked hard behind the scenes for months on this. And but I'm ready to move forward with something. But I'd like to see some assurance that we're going to go ahead and look at the rest of the parish and look at it down in the in-depth, like we looked at Panama and Conway. That you got some knowns over there now that were never known before, and it helped out some folks. And we may be in the same situation on the rest of the east side.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, okay, so I'm confused. And as a result, I guess I'm torn, Mr. Chairman. Is the intent here to ID not only the geographical boundaries and locations and what have you of the 8 flood basins most people agree are known to exist in the parish of Ascension on the East Bank? And are we asking in this request whatever engineering firm is anointed to be therefore recommending 8 different maximum fill recommendations? Or is that, not trying to put words, and you didn't use the word, when Mr. Dawson kind of indicated folly? In other words, Mr. Chairman, what exactly would be the scope of what you're asking for? Because that's what's really important. I think that's where the ball was dropped last time. I could be wrong about this, but I know I didn't personally participate in it, and that would be another question. Who would write the scope of this, go back out and seek more expertise? Would that be the administration? Would that be the council? Would that be a combination? What would it cover? Are we going to look at floodplain management as it relates to our Appendix 5 of the Unified Land Development Code again? And/or the drainage impact, which is still now as a result of the lack of ability to override the presidential veto, is policy and not even law, which I think is an absolute travesty that needs to be addressed. I mean, we need a drainage impact study law, whatever it says, or both. So I guess, Dempsey, I'm confused. What's the scope going to look like? Who's going to write it? Convince everybody that we really need it, because I do concur with Mr. Dawson. I can tell you for a fact, and I know everybody up here knows this, people are tired of studies, and they're going to, first thing they're going to say is that, wait a minute, you just did this study with whatever the numbers Mr. Dawson gave, $282 whatever $1,000. How come you didn't get it right that time, and what are we doing again, et cetera? We need to be real careful here to make the absolute best decision going forward. The alternative is to do nothing. And if we do that, there's elections coming. And elections, as they say, have consequences. We more than likely, I haven't heard Mr. Matassa announce, are going to have at least a new president, whoever that is. So there'll be differences in thinking in administration, period. And there may be as many as one more, two, or this entire council, frankly, with the anti-incumbency sentiment out there, I wouldn't be surprised to see us all dumped. And at that point, the next group would be considering it anyway, both at the legislative level, the council level, and at the executive level. I would agree with this I don't think either side so far, if this side is developing here, has spoke toward it. Doing nothing I'm not enamored with, but, whatever we do here today, I do agree with this too, it's not going to happen between now and come election time. This is going to be a year or more process for sure to get the kind of data that I think will be meaningful. But I would just absolutely, going back to my first question, like to know, are we going to ID the 8 flood basins and come and in the scope ask an engineering firm to say, okay, since a one-size-all arbitrary 3-foot fill thing doesn't seem to hunt, are you going to recommend 8 different numbers of maximum fill for each of these basins, or some modification of that, or what? I'm confused.
Yeah, and I apologize for you, Ms. Sally, if you're confused, but the main thing would be, first, property rights, the safety for our citizens. And let's face it, last Thursday, you had it in your district. We need to know the event, the backwater flooding. We need flash flood events. We need these numbers to make a good decision. And all I'm saying is, let's have the parish have a full understanding in each one of these basins, just like we done in the Panama, just like we done in Bayou Conway. Let us look at the New River. There's several other things that we can do here. Let's just give it a chance to. And look, I'm not looking to drag anything out. I've been accused of dragging my feet on this. I'm willing to, backwater flooding from Bayou Manchac. We just need to know what's in these other flood basins, floodways, and let's move forward. That's what I'm looking for. And, from the other night, it looked like it had a lot more questions here that needed to be answered. And you start messing with property rights and safety, we need to look into this. And I'm willing to throw this out there and say, hey, let's get a little bit more and move on quick. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, and I have appreciation for what you're saying basically, but so who's going to write this? As I said, is it going to be the administration, the council, combination of that? Or is there going to be a subcommittee?
I think it should be a combination, just like, and that way we, moving forward, we all on the same page. And anyone wanting to, Mr. Johnson?
I think there's 2 things we need to make sure of. First off, we're working off a FOLET plan as far as a lot of our drainage stuff that we're working on, which was done late 70s, early 80s, which studies are a living document, need to be updated as time goes on. So it's past time that we update that. the study that was done, like has been mentioned, was only done on the Panama Conway, so the rest of the east side of the parish wasn't looked at, and those information needs to be there as far as where we go. I don't know whether it's gonna be 8 different, 1 different, whatever. I think once they get out there and start looking at it, I let the basins dictate what needs to be done, and those are recommendations come from what's within those basins as far as fill or anything else. I'm willing to work with anybody. I sent, Mr. William a rough draft of what I would like to see within an RFQ concerning different rain events as well as backwater flooding, using the 2016 event as a benchmark for what we do, to do exactly what the chairman talked about, looking at rain events as well as backwater issues, to come up with different recommendations as well as a potential model that we can look at as far as any type of new development within the parish to show what the effects would be. And like Mr. Dawson said, we had a good discussion on that, and how do you achieve that? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not an engineer. I have ideas about how I think I would like to see, or the type of information I would like to see come back within that. The devil's in the details, like you said. It's going to be how do we draft this to get the information back, and so I think it's a collective that a couple of us could work on with the administration, and all of us could have input to see what would we like to see out of a study like this, and then put that into a draft form as far as an RFQ and get input on what they can give. Maybe like Mr. Dawson said, there's some of this stuff they can't give us. I don't know, but I would like to see us try to get that, and in that way, I think with that type of information, we could better serve the people that we represent as far as drainage in the parish is concerned.
So, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Benny, for your comments. I like the part about what would we like to see in this next study, and that's the big concern that I was trying to express before. Let me take another bite at the apple here. And I realize the pilot plan is also dated. It's kind of like, when you do new master plan, because it's dated, but, if you're not following either one of them, what's going on there? But what we need next, regardless of who writes it, combination of the administration and the council, is to be sure that whoever is anointed and gets the job at whatever the price, that they understand. That's why I alluded to Appendix 5 and drainage impact policy that's out there, that we want them to look at every line of the existing law, line by line by line, so that we don't have 2 years hence, after yet another study is done, them coming back and saying, whoever they are, well, we just left that because that was already the 3-foot fill, for example, in there, and we weren't really instructed to change it. No. Instruction should be in that scope. You have entire free reign to do the two things that's always done in amending and altering any laws at a local, state, or federal level, and that is strike-throughs of things that aren't good and appropriate anymore, and or new language additions, usually in a different color, but things that, back when the existing drainage impact policy and Appendix 5 non-laws and laws respectively were drafted, weren't there. Man, we got to just be absolutely sure if we're going to vote tonight to do another study, that we are telling ourselves and we're telling the people that we each represent in our 11 different districts that it's going to be made very, very clear to the engineering experts that we want a draft when it's over with that's going to result in law changes that are really good for the parish, that are going to withstand presidential veto, that's going to withstand public and developer scrutiny when it comes time to introduce it and then subsequently pass it into law. Else, if that's not really what's everybody's contemplating tonight, I'm not sure I can support it. If it is, so be it, because I mentioned the other alternative is to do nothing. I don't like that. Nothing is, as you mentioned, I just got backwater in Prairieville, and I've been living in my house for 25 years. I never had it, and it was scary within inches of coming into my home. And I was looking at the damage just today in my garage, which is not up on piers, and I've got 2 generators that are toasted, an air compressor, a power washer, a lawnmower, and et cetera, bunches of tools and stuff and everything that, you open the cases of your drill and you just dump the water out and you just, hesitant to plug it in or what you're gonna do. And I don't mean to sound like a whiner baby. My damage is minor. It's probably no more than $5,000 to $6,000 tops. If I don't care about the cosmetics damage to my shed, but and the contents and so forth. But boy, I don't want this anymore. And in my district, for example, if we don't need to be developing any more subdivisions, and I don't think that was definitely reflected at all in the master plan, quite frankly, then we just need to not be doing it. People keep saying, well, Doc, I don't understand. You didn't take a drop of water even close in the great flood of 2016? No. But I did this time in a smaller rain event in just a real quick time. But you heard me testify. That water came up. It wasn't a ditch problem from the parish standpoint, in a matter of hours, and it drained in those ditches in a matter of hours. But I'll tell you one thing that is different. When I bought my home 25 years ago, okay, there was no subdivision across the street from me. Now there's 2 or 3 of them off of Perkins Road. When you cross the railroad tracks, and this is all within a few tenths of a mile of my home, there was no Manchac crossing. There was no Manchac plantation. Heck, I bought the home literally to get out of Baton Rouge, like all the transplants that I represent, and to ride down the lovely historic Perkins Oaks with all the beautiful trees and everything. And I sat for the first probably 6 years of my tenure on this commission. Every time Mr. Chairman and you, former chairman, would say, well, Doc, we got anything to say? And the answer is no. Because we didn't have any drainage problems. I never got a drainage call. Let me tell you, when my house almost flooded last week, I probably got 12.5 that morning. Like, Doc, you got to come help me. One woman was absolutely hysterical because, and she says, I got chickens that are dying. You got to come out here and help me. You're the chicken doctor. I'm like, well, I'm going to get drainage people come out and try to save your chickens? Better be worrying about your house. So, again, if you're telling me tonight to get my vote that we are going to absolutely be charging some engineering firm that eventually, gets the task in the scope, that they're going to line by line go through these ever too important documents, Appendix 5 and our drainage impact policy, to make it law so that, the big thing there is so that no future parish president can just decide, I don't like this policy and I'm totally changing it. I think it ought to be codified. Then I can go with that. If we're not going to do that and we're just jerking everybody's chains, ourselves included, Doc was not going to be a happy camper. And I thank everyone for listening.
Appreciate your comments. Any other comments? If not, I will go ahead and put it out there that we, and I think we'll have a motion in a second, but we need an RFQ, professional engineers. We need 3 members from the Drainage Commission here. The staff, past
Mr.
president, he can
Chairman.
have a
Chairman,
few.
point.
If you're gonna entertain a motion on
We
this,
need
since
it
it
on the
wasn't on the
agenda.
agenda, we need to go ahead and amend the agenda.
I'm getting there. I'm just
All
seeing,
right.
I'm trying to feel the temperature here.
No problem, just wanted to make sure nobody made a motion
If-
before y'all did that.
Yeah, if, no, it didn't.
I made the
So,
motion, but we got to go through the proper channels.
You need to withdraw your motion. Point of order.
I'll withdraw my motion.
okay, so
As
we're
of
gonna,
right
we're
now.
gonna, look for this RFQ. This will be, 5A. We, Ms. Secretary, would you go ahead and give a roll count before we add this RFQ?
Well,
to
you
the
need to
agenda?
get a motion to amend the agenda first before
I'll
you
make a
take
motion
roll
to
call.
amend the agenda.
I second
Ms.,
it.
Mr. Aaron, second by Mr. Cluett.
Need a roll
Okay,
call?
Roll
roll
call.
call, Mr. Secretary.
Councilwoman Cazo,
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat,
Yes.
Councilman Dawson,
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Satterley,
Yes.
and Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll put it as 5A. And this will be to request an RFQ for professional engineering services. We'll have 3 members from our drainage board, Mr. President, and whatever on, Cody on staff, to administer the RFQ. We have it as a motion. Mr. Cluart made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr.
You
Johnson.
need to go ahead and open it up for public hearing since it was amended.
Amended by Mr. Aaron Lawler.
What?
No,
The-
not amended, you just have to have a
Just
public
amended-
hearing on the
it's
motion before
amended.
you vote.
The motion is.
Motion to
amended
open a public
agenda.
hearing.
Open up,
Motion up to, public hearing.
Second.
second. We have a speaker.
Have a speak, come on.
Hi, my name is Kim Christian. I will fill out a card after I speak. This is obviously just kicking the can down the road again. We had houses that flooded. I appreciate Mr. Sally saying his almost, but we had houses that flooded. The current ordinance does not protect the citizens as it is enforced today. So you are making the decision to do nothing. That is careless and reckless. Our citizens deserve more. How are we going to enforce the current ordinance? It says 3 feet. Are you saying it's arbitrary? And you as legislators, as lawmakers, can't determine what the law is? It's ridiculous. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Johnson,
Second.
second by Mr. Cluart. Questions, Mr. Cluart?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the motion going forward is for a study of the other 5 basins on the east side. But I also want to comment on the ordinances. That was the ordinance that was.
There are
on-
14 basins on the east side, Councilman.
Good deal. Well, then I'm not going to hire the engineering firm that said there were 8, okay? So anyway, we, just joking.
Some are sub-basins.
We got sub-basins.
There you go.
Apparently. Anyway, so I didn't take into consideration these sub-basins. So I'll use the term all basins. But while we're saying that, talking about kicking the can down the road, and it's basically, my disagreement with the ordinance, as it went forward was the understanding, the ability to implement it, and the resources, and the understanding of the public of what the legislation we were putting forward in that time frame. I do understand the time frames. That there was a lot of time spent between the time when the initial study was asked for and when it was actually delivered. And we all have a little blood on our hands on that one. I agree with Mr. Dawson to the point that we've had 3 feet, and whether that was reached arbitrarily or whether that was reached educationally, it was there. And I don't remember every detail of when it was first reached. But even though I voted to uphold the veto, I do believe that there was some substance to what went forward. I wanted some clarification, and I wanted a second look at it. And I think I owe that to the people of the parish. So I'm not looking to kick the can down the road. I know you want to go forward, we want to go forward with the study. I want that. Because we have checked with other parishes that they have studied every basin within their parish, and that ended up with different ordinances in different parts of those parishes. There's places where you can't build, in the floodways to be exact, things like that. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all. We need to know. Also, anything that we do will go into a regional plan. And that'll be, a card in our pocket for the regional plan to try to defend our position to protect the people of Ascension Parish within these regional decisions. And so if it's the wishes of this board to continue, and I'm not saying under this motion, but I'm saying if it's the wishes of this board to continue and go forward with an ordinance somewhere in the near future, you know, last Thursday night in the council meeting, it was brought up moratorium, things like that. Some of the major differences between the different council members was the flat out zero net fill. Zero net fill is if it's used across the board for everybody, yes, there may be a place when somebody can justify putting 10 foot of fill, all right, as long as they can zero net fill it. The 3 foot max fill is, how would that be rolled out? Rolled out across the board everywhere, no matter if you, like Doc had said, Doc and I talked for a long time. You know, if you, what elevation, Doc, 23 feet or whatever, and I'm at elevation 5. So that's the difference between Doc's house and my house, or his land he stands on, his yard, and the yard I stand on. So there's 3 foot block drainage.
Well, he's not.
And does 10-foot block drainage. So there's a lot of thought to go into there. Another thing that was brought up at the meeting when this was passed was brought up the 2-foot freeboard versus the 1-foot freeboard. What are the effects of that? Mr. Dawson had a great statement about, you know, reducing as high as 50% on your flood insurance. Who wouldn't want to do that? But, you know, where do we stand? Is that something that the people want? That's something that we want. I can tell you this much, I said it before, and people get tired of me saying it. There's a new set of flood maps coming sooner or later. There's some new rules coming sooner or later from Washington, D.C. You know, and this gets going nationwide. It's just coming. Whether we're ahead of the curve with the 2 foot or not. So that's some of the main. Those 3 points are some of the things that were discussed in front and discussed behind the scenes, and some of the differences. I personally will go ahead and defend my other 10 council members. One of them's not here, but the fact that I don't think anybody here is bought and sold by any builders, contractors, or whatever. I think they're all good people trying to make some decisions. And I don't have a problem if at some point soon, at whatever meeting, whether it be here or it be on the council, and come out of a committee, that we go forward with, and Madam Chair, at some point we can take up that legislation again and come to something that we can protect the people until we get this done. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion? Mr. Dawson?
So, I guess I'm still not clear on what the objective is here. So if the objective is to modify the floodplain management ordinances, as Mr. Sadley said, go through line by line, that's one thing. If we're here to make models of every basin in the parish, that's something entirely different. We're talking about years' worth of difference in time. Myself, you know, I wouldn't be in favor of if we were going to modify the floodplain management ordinance on something that we really decide whether we're going to set the fill or whether we're going to do zero net fill. We don't need any more work. We can go to, you say line by line, going through the ordinance, that's exactly what HNTB did for us, for $282,000. And you can go to May of 2018, the Strategic Planning Committee, and that report that was presented at that committee, that's what it had. It had recommended changes in the ordinance and in 9.5 that told us here's what you need to correct. The only thing that we didn't include in that, or is not included in that, is, you know, if you're not comfortable with the 3 feet or the 2 feet, or if you want to do something that increases enforcement. If the objective here today is to modify the floodplain management ordinance and get that which I'm gonna say, get it in compliance with what we told the people we'd do in 2016.
Right.
We all stood right here in 2016 when everybody was shaking the water off of them, and we told them we were gonna do something. Now, here it is, 2019. So if that's what we wanna do, then we don't need an RFQ. We have the beginning of that, we have the ordinance as it was proposed, and it's a political decision after that. It's not an engineering decision. Now, if you want to define all the basins, and you want to make models of all the basins, I'm for that, but you're talking about millions of dollars. I mean, HNTB made that recommendation, or made that estimate of $2 million, and, maybe they're not right, maybe it's $1.5 million, but it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time, and I don't think they should be tied together.
Mr. Aaron Lawler.
Yes, one of my concerns is there's quite simply a lack of urgency. We've been waiting on this a tremendous amount of time. We haven't got anything done on it. Well, my concern is that this is going to continue to languish just over time. Several months ago, I tried to place a moratorium on fill. I pleaded with Councilman Satterlee to make the motion. He didn't do it. I don't know why. Maybe things have changed now. But unless we do something that's going to urge this group to move forward, I don't see us moving forward. Because we've had the opportunity to do it. We haven't done anything. If we need a kick in the butt in the form of moratorium, maybe I can get support for it this time. But maybe that's something that has to be done. Hopefully we can move forward on that. But unless we have something that's going to force us to take action on this, I don't see any good coming out of this until the end of the year. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Turner.
I'd like to amend the motion, make amend it to add a moratorium of 6 months until one of these studies can be completed.
I'll second that.
Guys, hold up. Y'all would have to do that as a council. Y'all don't have the authority to put a moratorium on places drainage board.
We can recommend it to the council, right?
I mean, you can make a recommendation to the council,
You
yeah,
want to
but
make a recommendation then?
I'll second that.
At this point, we'll amend.
Question on that, is that something?
as a procedural issue, I think you need to go back and amend the agenda on that one too, because it wasn't
That's
noticed
what I
on
was
the
gonna
agenda.
ask, because that's not on the agenda to do, so I mean, we'd have to amend the agenda again to make that, put that on there.
Or I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Moved by
Second
Mr.
that.
Turner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sadler. We'll open it up to the public for, I'm sorry, we'll put that as 5B,
You gotta have a roll call first, and then,
but I'm gonna put it as B. Ms. Secretary, please.
Councilwoman Cazo,
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat,
Yes.
Councilman Dawson,
Yes.
Councilman Cadden.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson,
yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert, Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Satterlee,
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
With that, we'll put that as 5B. So,
Motion to open the public hearing.
motion by
Second.
Mr. Benny Johnson to open the
Well,
public.
I guess before,
We need to
can we
vote on the
clarify
other
what the
one.
actual motion on the table is?
Well, we have two parts. One would be for the RFQ and the other one would be.
Well,
Yeah.
no, as far as Travis's motion, what are you actually recommending a
right.
moratorium on?
On any new building until we can have this RFQ done and someone selected to do the report.
Okay, and that's across the board, no building at all, or no fill?
Well, I would
guess
say,
I'm trying to see what you're trying to limit. What is the
No
specifics
new
of your
subdivisions
moratorium?
being approved to be built until we have this done. It wouldn't apply to single lots,
All right, major and minor subdivisions, or just
all subdivisions.
all subdivisions, okay?
Are you going just until the RFQ is approved?
Well, at that point, we'll try to put can we put a clause in there to go another 6 months if everything's not done?
I think we have to wait until that time to do that legally.
Can't do that.
What,
Well, look, it's just a recommendation
Yeah,
now.
this is-
You're ultimately gonna have to vote on it at council level. I'm just trying to make it
Perfect.
clear so y'all know what's being sent to council from this board.
all right, so on the RFQ, did we have any other discussion on it? We'll vote on,
We need to vote on the first one before we even start on the the other motion.
I just want to make clarification on the first item. And what do you have, that we go forward for an RFQ to
Yeah, I have
study
that-
the remaining basins in the parish?
I think that's what you made, and that there was gonna be 3 drainage commissioners on the group that prepares it, the administration, and then legal.
Prepare an
Okay.
RFQ.
And just so everybody knows, from what I understand y'all are asking for, this is just to prepare the RFQ and go out for RFQ. You still
Right.
would have to get the recommendation, y'all would have to approve the acceptance of the engineering firm, and you'd also have to approve the contract.
Yeah.
So this is just starting the process.
Right.
So with that, Mr. Sanders?
Yeah, just,
I'm
so
just trying to
follow up to
clear
Mr. Kluat's excellent question. This would not, at this stage, include Cody's scope or anything of this RFQ.
Well, you're gonna have to prepare a scope of the work so that the engineers firms can submit their qualifications to do that work, but you still ultimately have to approve acceptance of an engineering firm, you ultimately have to approve a contract and a contract amount.
So a yea vote tonight on this motion would just authorize those 3 individuals, whoever they're unidentified, that are
The group to
commissioners,
basically prepare the RFQ and advertise the RFQ,
however it comes out. 'Cause
correct?
we don't know what it is until those 3 individuals in the administration all gets together and says, here's what
Yeah.
what it looks like scope-wise. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, or you can request that it be brought back to, the RFQ be brought back to y'all for approval before it is submitted.
We would assume that that's
That-
what
that- that's-
would happen anyway.
That's what will get my vote, so, and I don't know who
Yeah.
the author of this is, if not.
That would be me. I'm with you,
So
Don.
you with that, Randy?
Yeah, that the RFQ come back to us.
Because, I mean,
From the
not
subcommittee.
all 10 of us can be on this 3-commissioner
Right.
board, sub-board. So therefore, anybody who would vote for this and wouldn't be on it would just be trusting that their input would go forward or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the intention, Mr. Clark, of your motion?
That was the intention,
And the second is fine
that
with
the
that?
administration and whoever, the chairman appoints the 3 members of this committee to go forward to develop a RFQ to come back to us with a scope. To study the remaining basins in the parish.
And this would be, this would be before we actually send it out then? This would just be to
Yep.
define what it looks like?
Definitely, yes, sir. We're on the same page, Doc.
So were there any objections to this? Mr. Dawson?
Object.
One objection with Mr. Liz, roll call?
And this is on 5A, correct?
Yes.
5A.
Hey, I'm sorry, yeah.
RFQ. All right. Councilwoman Cazo?
I wish I'd have made some comments earlier. I'm gonna, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I find this extremely frustrating after last week. As much as I hate to reject the idea of a study of the basins, I don't know what it's gonna accomplish. I mean, I'm not convinced it's gonna accomplish anything. I do believe that the study of the basins is needed. But I'm not sure it's needed now. Doesn't have, and I don't believe, in fact, I'm fairly convinced that it's not necessary in order to create an ordinance to protect our citizens from flooding relative to fill. So I'm inclined to support the idea that we need to study these basins. I just really have a hard time with the timing of it. So, as conflicted as I am, at this point, I'm going to vote no.
Councilman Kluat?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
No.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
No.
Councilman Lawler?
No.
Councilman Satterley?
I'm still confused, and as using Terry's word, I'm conflicted. but I don't want to abstain because it has the effect of a no vote without voting no. So, and I've been critical, saying that no member of this body has been elected to abstain and sit on our hands but 2 votes. So I'm going to vote, and it's a tough vote, but I'm going to vote no.
Councilman Turner?
No.
So we have 6 nays and 4 yeas, so failed.
We'll move on to 5B. I'm sorry.
Can I make a quick comment?
Go ahead, Mr. Comment.
Thank y'all for all y'all respect, but, so I would appreciate down the road, continue to look at the study.
I think we need
into these
more,
basins.
again, it's a timing.
Yeah, I'm good with
If we'd
it.
have had this on the agenda to start with, or we'd have came out of a committee, it might be
I'm
something.
good with it, Bill.
All right,
I'm
with
just,
that,
I'm just not on any committee that's gonna feed that to you, okay?
we'll move on to item B for Mr. Turner's recommendation.
That killed.
We don't have no.
Total separate.
Moratorium,
You know,
6-month
That
moratorium.
nullifies that,
Because it was.
No, I don't want to remove it.
so you don't need to remove it.
You need,
Withdrawn.
Mr. Chairman,
It has
you
no
need public
substance.
comment.
anyone wishing to speak on it? The item 5B moratorium.
Ask her where we stand, it's basically
Chairman?
kills it, she's gonna come back.
And this is just a recommendation.
Yes.
Ms. Christie?
My name is Kim Christie, and for clarity, is it a moratorium for the ordinance or a moratorium for the RFQ that just got voted down?
No.
It's for the RFQ,
It
till the
got,
RFQ was delivered.
it got voted down, didn't it?
No, it's a moratorium on building of subdivisions, Mr. Turner,
Correct.
Until the RFQ is done.
until.
Yeah, that's what the motion
But let's
was.
take it down, want to modify that motion, take out the RFQ part.
Can't.
But there were 2 separate items, 5A, 5.
Well, it was 5B, correct?
Okay.
I know we had it
I don't
tied to the
think I
RFQ, so
don't-
we can't remove the RFQ part of it.
I don't think he can with the,
Not with
the agenda was amended
I
to
would
ma-
amend
for
the
that.
motion to remove the, being tied to the RFQ.
Okay, I am in favor, I'll just speak and sit down, then we can do the legalese. I am in favor of a 6-month moratorium until we can get an ordinance passed.
That's what he said.
H&TB stated that our current ordinance is disorganized, is confusing. A member of this committee has stated doing nothing is not an option, and I'm totally in agreement with that. We are almost there. If we do nothing but straighten it out, we can go back and fix it later, but we do need to straighten it out. It's convoluted and confusing.
Believe it or not, Ms. Christie, that's what we're trying to do.
So, let's put in make a recommendation to the full council for a 6-month moratorium until we can get our ordinance straightened out. Thank you.
Mr. Turner, you're the,
Yeah, well, I wanted to just remove the RFQ portion of that motion. I don't want to tie it to the RFQ.
Look, we're gonna have, since this is not on the agenda, we're gonna have to start the whole process all over again. So Travis, if you want to withdraw your motion,
I
y'all
withdraw
can take
that
up a
motion.
vote on
Make
that.
them-
5A, we added 5B.
Okay, I would draw that motion.
All right, he's made a motion to withdraw 5B. He needs a second.
I'm not too sure about that, Cody. I mean, this is a subject matter. I mean, we're not considering a motion on the agenda. It's just a subject.
Well,
matter.
because the
it's a-
problem is it wasn't noticed on the agenda to start with. If you'd have had a notice on the agenda,
I know,
which
but
y'all
we
were
have in
considering.
here that we're asking to consider a moratorium. I don't
It's a-
think the agenda, item doesn't have to have the specific language. If the subject is the same, then you can amend that.
No, the open meeting law says if you're gonna add an agenda item, it has to be specific as to what are you adding so that the public can comment on it. So you can't
Well,
amend
on a
it
subject
after you
matter.
opened it.
But
No,
it
not
doesn't
on,
mean we can't amend that.
well, y'all made a motion to open the floor on Travis's motion. Y'all amended the agenda. I mean, y'all can take it up. He just needs to remove this one and go ahead and make another motion to amend the agenda to consider his new motion.
I want to make the motion to withdraw my original motion.
Second.
Now I make a motion to place a 6-month moratorium on all subdivision, any and all subdivision development in
Well,
Ascension.
first-
That's it.
Yeah, but he's putting different terms in. So make a motion to amend the agenda,
A motion to,
consider, and then state what you're asking the board to consider with specificity.
okay, I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda to add in a 6-month moratorium.
Do we have a second?
Second.
6-month
Second.
moratorium on subdivision development, correct?
Yes, subdivision
Okay.
development.
Second by Mr. Lawler. Discussion?
Not making a law.
No, do we have to do a roll call on this now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Ms. List?
This is just the amend the agenda. This is not on the
To
actual
amend it.
recommendation yet.
Item,
5C.
okay.
Run out of numbers there.
We didn't drop that down.
Stay there. Translate, stay by C.
Enough.
Councilman Cazzo? Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yes.
Yes, okay. Councilman Kluat?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Satterlee?
Yes.
And Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Yes. Pass.
Motion
5C.
passed.
Add 5C.
Now you
5C.
gotta have public comment.
Motion to open public comment.
We're gonna go to this
Second.
5C.
Second.
Ms. Christie?
You good.
Come on, let's move this thing.
You good. Got a green card.
She supports it. She supports it.
With that.
Motion to close public comment?
Moved by
Second.
Ms. Sadler, second by Ms. Terry.
Motion to move the,
Moved by Mr. Aaron Lawler,
Second.
second by Mr. Turner. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Mr.
Real quick.
Kluwat?
With all respect to the 6-month moratorium, I guess this is made, Mr. Turner, I'm asked that you elaborated, you basically made this pending what?
Well, I'd like to be pending until.
What
we
was
get-
your, I'm just asking, what is the basis of your motion?
Well, my basis is.
Because I know you had something. with-
Yes, well, my basis is that from last Thursday when the
Right.
veto stood,
Mhm.
and also from earlier discussion, everybody saying the law needs to be cleaned up.
Right.
We put the 6-month moratorium on any and all subdivisions. I think that will put some fire underneath administration and everybody to make an ordinance that is clearer and more concise and can be followed better.
So I would be poised to amend that motion for clarity, that a 6-month moratorium or until this body can pass an ordinance,
A fill order.
a fill ordinance. And
wouldn't
I
have a
think
problem.
that's what you wanted to do anyway, right, sir?
I'll second that.
Yes,
hold on, we gotta open this back up and take a roll call vote again to do
No.
that.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do it again?
I can amend the motion.
We're
We
not
just
making a
made,
law
when he
anyway.
amended.
It's
the
a
motion-
It's a recommendation to the council.
Pass it until we.
The problem is you guys didn't notice this. So everything you're taking up, if you're gonna keep amending it, you have to open it up, you have to amend the agenda
I'm
again.
good with
and
it.
Open it up for public hearing, so.
Well, let me ask you this, Cole, so we do it as is, and it's just a recommendation. We can
It's just-
change.
You can always change it later
We
on.
can change it later at the council.
At the
court.
council.
Absolutely, this is gonna have to be voted on at the council.
I'm good with it. I just don't want to lose the intent of what he's trying to do and what we're trying to do right here. Go
Perfect.
back and get something in place.
Right.
One more.
Because the
discuss-
study's
Mr.
gonna take a
Johnson.
long time.
I hate to throw mud in this, guys, but the council cannot act as the drainage board when you're meeting as a council to change the recommendation from the drainage board. So when you get to the council, you can take a different action. You don't have to take the action that the drainage board is recommending, but you cannot change the recommendation from the drainage board as a council, just as a point of clarity.
Yeah.
Well, we can amend it.
He clarified.
You can amend it all you want at the council.
Any-
If the council decides to take action on it, they can take whatever action the council wants. But they
Independent.
can't change the recommendation of the drainage board at that point in time. If that's what your thoughts are,
And
that
and
can't
guys,
happen.
the drainage board is not a subcommittee of the council, so just a recommendation from the drainage board is not even guaranteed to be on the agenda of the council.
That's
Because
it.
it comes
That's
from
the
the
other
drainage
thing.
board.
Could be a separate agenda item.
Correct.
Way
Completely
overworked.
separate. governing
Way
body.
overworked, but it's just a recommendation, Doc, so.
No, but
Mr. Sadler.
I just need clarity. I think Councilman Johnson just opened up another yet can of worms, so to speak. The vote that most recently failed to overturn the presidential veto on the fill ordinance, as I recall, was 7-3 with one abstention. That was done by the full council, of which that member that abstained is not a member of this board. And as a result of that, nonetheless, it had the weight, as we know from Robert's rules, of not being tallied as a yea or nay vote, but had the weight of a nay effect. And therefore, because we needed a supermajority, or said another way, 8 full votes of the full council, it failed for lack of one vote with that abstention. Now we're saying we're going to recommend as a board back to that same council who struggled with this last time and allow the councilman that abstained, who has no skin whatsoever in the game, is that not correct, by virtue of not sitting on this board, the opportunity to abstain again or even vote no if he so chooses?
That would be his choice.
Well, but it's
So-
gonna affect the whole parish. If we make a parish-wide ordinance, it's gonna affect.
That's
his
what, that was my next question. So,
Right.
I was gonna ask legal, so by virtue of it being a law for the land, the entire parish, that's an okay procedure. In other words, the drainage board shouldn't exclusively control, even though we're called the East Ascension, meaning the East Bank Gravity Drainage Board, or whatever the official title is, that decision. It has to be a full council decision.
Yeah, absolutely, that's,
Okay.
like I tell you, today is, y'all can talk about it all y'all want, but the council's ultimately gonna have to
So
make a decision. on
so
this.
do we need to get Mr. Turner to withdraw his motion again and try to put this on the agenda again? Or, by the way, Cody.
We can't put it on the agenda. This is all for show.
And that's my, whatever you guys vote on, there's no guarantee it gets on the council agenda anyway, and that's what I'm telling you, you guys, you're completely autonomous board. You can make any recommendations you want, you can send a resolution to
Right,
council with
but
your
I
recommendation.
I understand that, Mr. Cody, but isn't it true that our bylaws and our, what do you call it, Constitution, our homeroom charter state explicitly that the chairman, in this case chairwoman, along with the president, sets the agenda? So you're saying if Ms. Cazzo wants to put it on our agenda as a result of this board's deliberation and final decision, Mr. Matassa can block that, or what are you saying?
I'm saying that this is not a subcommittee of council, there's no guarantee that approval of the drainage board gets it on your agenda.
What's going to put it on the agenda or not? What would stop it?
I don't know the
chair.
specific rules of the home charter, but I guess
Chairman
the
and
chair or
two
whoever else is
council
allowed to
members.
do it.
Rules that are in
All
place.
by herself?
No, two.
Whatever's in the home charter, I don't know off the top of my head, Doc, I'd have to go.
It says
research
that, because I've had this before, it previously said any council member can place something, but the chair and with the concurrence of the president sets the agenda. And legal counsel has opined, your counterpart, Mr. O'Neill Parrington, to me in multiple occasions, that there's a difference between the word place versus set on the agenda. And if that's the case, I'm
He's the
questioning.
attorney for the council, whatever he says is what is the rules of council, or that's the advice given to the council.
So
I'm not gonna
even,
give
so
you
my
anything
point is
different.
this, so if Ms. Terry says, I want it on the agenda, and the president says no, then Mr. O'Neill Parrington can opine that, the president doesn't want it, so it can't go on the agenda, because it requires both of them to set the agenda.
No,
We- I
think
we've already
we-
changed the law on that.
I think we've proven time after time that
Well,
the
no,
chair
we do-
can put
we-
it on the agenda.
Well, we do have a new law, I think Mr. Dawson authored, that 3 members, what is it, Bill, can request to put something on the agenda even if the chair doesn't want to, so we could go that route as well, right?
Yeah.
Is that not law, Mr.
Doc,
Cody?
I'm not familiar with the rules of the council, I'm not the attorney for the council.
Okay.
All right, well, all right. Is there any opposition to 5C? Is there any opposition to 5C? If there's none, motion passed.
Now we get to
We're gonna
start
move on to number 6, the drainage report. Mr. Ron Salvo.
Good evening, board members. John, if you don't mind, you can go ahead. We're going to do a little presentation tonight and kind of go over a few things. So this is a map ironically, of the watersheds in the East Bank. I know William came up a minute ago and said,
Well, you told me earlier that we're gonna see it sooner
yeah,
or
I mean,
later, so.
so,
All we had to
look,
do was ask.
I think it would maybe need to be blessed by an engineering firm, but this is from our GIS department. There's 14 different watersheds on the East Bank. As we go through, you know, we got the maintenance of every day, over 1,000 miles of ditch, just in the off-road department, not including roads and such. Wanted to get in the highlight of our employees off-road, is this is focusing on off-road drainage. When we came to you guys three or so months ago, we had 440 work orders off-road. We did a lot of data quality control and consolidation of work orders, where we may have had 2 or 3 work orders on the same block. We made that all in one work order, stuff we just could not get right-of-ways on and things of that. A lot of data cleanup. As you know, last week we had a tremendous event. First and foremost, I want to send out our sympathies to anyone that did take on water. That was a 100-year storm event in Prairieville area. You had 4.3 inches of rain in 1 hour. And so our infrastructure in that area is designed for a 10-year storm event. Actually, that's 10 times that. So we did see some very troublesome events in the Prairieville area, mainly from Perkins Road, Airline Highway, Old Jefferson, 42. That whole area there had really saw some flash flooding. You even had it down in the lower end of the parish. Airline and Gonzales had a gauge that had 3.2 inches of rain in roughly an hour. So we did start up the pumping operation on the Wednesday and drew the bayous down in preparation for this. And we continued to pump from that point forward through the event. It's just a matter of the rate of that rainfall that came down. So here's some of the examples of work we're doing off-road. This is Highway 431, where the state went in and did some improvements and enlarged the pipes to double 24-inch pipes. We went in and enlarged it to match what the state did to double 42s. This is an example of an off-road drainage work order in Charleston subdivision. You notice the yellow pins, it kind of marks out the trend of where the ditch is. You can see the multiple property owners that we have to deal with just to get one ditch dug. You see how plugged up the ditch was. This is a cross drains under the street going into the outfall ditch. And you can see the silt in front of the pipes. And you can see some of the obstructions these guys have to work around. When they get to these culverts, they don't just leave them like that. We get that pump truck out there and blow them out. The guys out there working every day trying to keep these drainage areas maintained and dug out as much as we can. And
Hey, Ron, is that before or after the big rain?
that was actually before. Well,
Okay.
they're currently still working.
I was
yeah.
just curious.
This is Highway 621 in El Landry Road. If you look at the far left pin at 621 sign there, that's the outfall for Highway 621 in El Landry. The state just dug all of that, and we're improving that outfall ditch to the Bayou Goudin. So those are some of the pictures. You know, each parcel has its own obstructions, so we have to go make a conversation with these landowners and how to get in, how to get out kind of thing. And you can see we deal with each individual ones. This is another one on Wood Run subdivision off Tommy Moore Road. If you look really close to the right, you'll see a finished ditch, but to the left, you actually look really close, you see 2 machines in the ditch. That servitude's just so tight, we can't do anything but get in it and dig the ditch. So one machine is digging and cutting grade, while another one is catching the dirt behind him and relaying dirt out and getting that ditch open. Another scenario in Pecan Grove off of Highway 30 subdivision. Same scenario, you get a 15-foot servitude, you just have an alleyway to work within. So we work with those landowners. You see the guys off the right shooting elevation as they're digging. And you don't see these guys a lot. They're in people's backyard, behind fences, out in the woods, just digging ditches just like we do every day, trying to keep the work orders moving. This is off of Norwood Road. Starts at Norwood, it goes to 931. Big outfall ditch, the Ficklin outfall ditch. We just finished cleaning that. This is the Santamon High School ditch. You can see that vegetative growth on both sides of the channel. This is one of the channels that's back in the woods. You really don't know about it unless you just know that the ditch is there. we have the shredder machine in there doing maintenance on it. And that's the shredder machine actually doing the work, and you kind of see the effects after you do the work. It's much more maintainable once he goes through. We plan on getting this to where the tractors will be able to keep this up, hopefully, when we're done with the project. This is the upper branch of New River towards Geisler. They did the same thing there and shredded the undergrowth. And then we get into vegetation management. This is Johnson Bayou out towards Geisler and 73 area. The tractors in the vegetation department doing their work and keeping these channels mowed and serviced. But then you get into, that's our everyday role, but you get an event like last week come up and hit us. So we go into pumping mode. We have to man all of our infrastructure. So you look at the far northwest corner, you see a Star of Frog Bayou floodgate. And that controls Bluff Swamp. And you'll see a live action video here. This is at the beginning of May. We had a backwater event in Bayou Manchac. That is currently 11.2 feet elevation on the Alligator Bayou side and Bayou Manchac. If you look on the other side, you see how low that water is. We shut the gates right before that backwater event started. And that's what protects you people in the Bluff Swamp, which is Ridge Road area. You think of Sammy's Grill, Charleston Subdivision, Highway 73 by the Airline Highway, Dutchtown High School, 74 from 73 to the north, going out towards St. Gabriel. All that area drains to that structure right there. And that is currently a 6x6 box culvert that is operated by that gate, sluice gate that's on it. We'll get to a slide later with Fish Bayou improvement, which is just down the highway from there. But you can see the watershed of that Bluff Swamp, what that floodgate controls. There are no pumps there. It's just a gravity flow floodgate. So it's crucial that we shut and close that gate when we have the opportunity, and we let water out as much as we can prior to a rain event starting. So that's Frog Bayou. Again, you get into Henderson Bayou Basin. That is a pumping station and a floodgate. Same event. You can see the floodgate in action. We closed it. You see the water backed up to the levee on the high side. And on the low side, we're at a normal elevation of Henderson Bayou, around a 2.3. And that backwater side of Port Vincent was at a 7.2, I believe it was, that day we were there. So you can see we're holding roughly 3 to 5 feet of water back from the residents of Galvez. This area protects, highway-wise, is 933. 42 and 44 is where Henderson Bayou starts. You also have the Burat ditch that drains into Henderson Bayou, which is Merritt Evans Road area, goes all the way back up to Parker Road and starts out at the top end of Rennis Drive and Fountain Blue off of Parker. So all of that water goes towards Henderson Bayou Pumping Station. Then you get into the Sorrento Pumping Station. Back up just a bit. On Henderson, I didn't show you the pumps acting because we were in a backwater event. In respect to the people that already had high water on their properties, we did not turn the pumps on that day. But Sorrento, kudos to the drone pilot of the parish. But that's in action, Sorrento Pumping Station. There's 3 48-inch discharge pumps there. And they have, get my fact sheet here. But you can see them operating. They're up and operational right now. They have 300 CFS, cubic feet per second, of flow discharge rate on those pumps. And they are fully up and operational as we speak, and we're in that event. And that protects basically the town of Sorrento, all of Brittany Street, and mainly the town limits of Sorrento. Marvin Bro Pumping Station. This is the area that protects the most, and that's kind of a good drone shot of that. This is the same flood event that those other shots were of, and you'll see in a minute that operation. We have 7 pumps there. They each have 1,000 cubic feet per second discharge rate. They are all up and operational. I want to make it known that our quota is 5 pumps. We don't rely on the 7 to run an event, but we do have 7 pumps there, and they are currently operational. So as you can see, it moves, roughly one pump can pump, 490,000 gallons a minute. An Olympic-sized swimming pool is 660,000 gallons. So in roughly 1 minute, you can almost fill up a swimming pool of Olympic size with one pump in 1 minute. With all 7 of these pumps running, you can pretty much move over 3 million gallons a minute with that station. That is the basin of Marvin Bro for the parish. Starts,
Could you let the public know just how much diesel, do you have that number?
Sure.
Per pump, per,
yeah, it's got,
I know the number's way up there, and I think that's a good, let the public know how much.
sure. There's 45,000 gallons, 15,000 gallon diesel tanks at the station. One of those engine burns 68 gallons of diesel per hour. You figure out $2.20 a gallon. It costs, I had a darn sheet in front of me here. Anyway, it costs roughly $1,200 an hour to run all 7 pumps at one time. It costs roughly $14,000 to run a 12-hour shift manned. This is all my estimates, so don't quote me if it's not exactly right, but it's about $14,000 with manpower and to run all 7 pumps for a 12-hour shift. But that is if they're all up and running and burning that much diesel.
Good.
But that's the watershed, and like I said, it starts at 42 and Highway 930 at Rouse's Supermarket, Rhonda Place subdivision, that's the far north end of the basin. Goes all the way west through New River to Geismar, towards the River Road. All of that water drains to the Marvin Bro pumping station. So here's a slide with all the puzzle pieces of what flood control structures the parish has invested over the years. And you can see that there are parts of the parish that are gravity flow drainage. And if you look to the top northeast corner, you'll see that puzzle piece missing, and get into the levees. If that Laurel Ridge levee project does happen, you'll see a puzzle piece to the northeast, the Amite River Basin towards Gold Place area, Lake Martin. Those areas would then be in the protection of a levee system. Going into the Laurel Ridge levee update, I got with Kimberly last week about this, and you got 7 outfall structures proposed, 4.5 miles of levee. The permit's been issued. They're 90% preliminary design submittal. On 6/14/2019, we gave comments to her about that. As you can see, the milestones are there. Right-of-way appraisals at 100% complete and 95% design submittal. So we're working towards getting that project executed. Then you could see the flood effects, or the watershed that would protect is mainly all of the lake, the Gold Place, the Sanamo area would see benefits from that project. Fish Bayou project, as we stated in the Frog Bayou or Bluff Swamp lock, one of the most crucial things is when Manchac goes down to get the water out of the Bluff Swamp. So this Fish Bayou project would put 2 12-by-12 box culverts there in addition to that 1 6-by-6 box culvert. So it would give us much more capacity to get that water out of the Bluff Swamp when Mother Nature would allow us to do that. And this is sort of the proposed right-of-way servitudes that is needed for this project. We've been working with that landowner, Mr. Frank Bonifay, very diligently with him, and Cody's got the data to put together the intergovernmental agreement with him. He's currently working on that. So we hope to get that very soon and bring it back to you guys to move a milestone forward in that project. And then in New River, we are about to bid this, and kind of defer to Joey on this bid. He's been handling that, but to kind of give you the extent of the weir removal and New River improvement from the weir at Walmart on Weber City Road to Smith Bayou at Cornerview. And removal of that and the digging of that would do what we talked about, give us the ability to pump down the Bayou Goudin Basin and New River watershed prior to an event coming with the pumps. So that's pretty much the conclusion of my presentation, and I know Joey's got a few milestones and some sticking on. So
Very, very good job, Ron. Any questions for Ron? Mr. Bill?
I just want to make a quick comment. Very good. Thank you very much, Ron. The presentation was good and clear and a lot of great information.
Anyone, Ms. Terry?
Second, this is maybe the second time in my tenure in all these years that I've seen what I feel like was such an informative presentation. I love the idea of being able to use the drones, see what's happening, show our citizens where you are working. It must be extremely frustrating to feel like you're always subject to criticism, and I am so proud of you for being able to prove to people what you people are doing every day. So thank you for doing that. We always know, and we thank you. But I think it means a lot to be able to show people out in the viewing public what you're doing. So congratulations on that. And I know those PowerPoints don't come together in 5 minutes.
No.
Good work.
Excellent.
Anyone, Ms. Don, anyone else?
Excellent job.
Mr. Ron, you want to get Mr. Joey up, or you finished?
Good evening. The plans for the channel improvement project are now complete. A requisition was approved for the funding, and the advertisement of that project should begin in the next week or two. With everything played out, which includes mandatory pre-bid, a selection committee coming out for I'm sorry, not a selection committee, but there'll be inquiries by the contractors, and, we'll respond to those inquiries. Bids should be received, if there's no other, delays, bids should be received on that project, July 16th. And that New River Channel, as Ron had mentioned, one important thing that he has brought out whenever there's pumping procedures, the Goudin is affected because of, there's probably other factors, but there's two main obstructions in New River that this project would fix, which was the excessive amount of silt that comes from the Goudin at the mouth of New River, and then the weir itself. So that's what this project would, one of the main features of that project. The drainage improvement project for Riverside Estates Drive, Savoy Road, Shealy, and Penny Street was completed. All final documents will be addressed in agenda items number 10, 11, and 12. There's a notice to proceed that's been given to Brian Hammond and Associates for the Lake Park subdivision project, to study that subdivision and to come up with a drainage improvement project, and also to study the Charleston area for some street flooding that we've encountered for quite a while. So it'll be for those two studies to be done. Well, one is a study, one will actually be a project. The Lake Park subdivision will become a project for drainage improvement.
Excuse me.
Yeah, please.
With the Charleston project, why won't that become a project? We had 2 houses that flooded in this past rainfall.
Well, this is just a study to see what should be done. There's some topo work that'll be done, and is to see, exactly how this project should be attacked.
Do we have a timetable on that?
No, not really. I mean, but it is, just to gather information and to make recommendations to our department to see, it may be something that we can do internally, or it may be something that we should come up for a project, but we want them to do the study.
Okay.
Make sure, just a little clarification on that it is the Westlake problem where that road goes under all the time. That's the scope of this. It's not the entire Charleston subdivision. It's that problem on, I think it's Westlake Drive?
Yes.
That's the scope of this.
Oh, okay. Because we just had 2 houses that flooded.
On East Lake.
On East Lake.
Right.
Yes.
East Lake.
We had houses in Willow Lake that were an inch away from water. So I don't know is that being looked at? That area?
Not in this scope. Councilman Aaron know, this was a long-going problem on Westlake.
Yeah.
That's being looked at.
About 12 years, they told me.
Yeah. So we brought this firm out a couple of months ago, and we're now getting the proposals back, and those are proceeding to try to look into that problem. So we would have to come back to the drawing board on something further than just that one street, so.
Well, I think we'll do that next meeting. I'll get that taken care of. Put that on the agenda.
And there is a time limit on the project. I just don't recall exactly how many days are in the contract, but there is a timeline. We're not going to just let them go on.
Okay.
We do have the Wallace Acres project. Bids were received on May 16th, and that will be item number 7 on the agenda. Ms. Jones will make a presentation there. We also have agenda item number 8, which will be for the construction inspection service of that same project. We have an RFQ that is being advertised currently to have a consultant or consultants on retainage for various engineering services for the drainage section. This will include, but not be limited to, H&H studies and modeling, drainage impact studies, preliminary and final plans for drainage projects, project supervision and inspection, benefit cost ratios, and really just anything that the drainage department needs any expertise. So that RFQ is being advertised now. We will have inquiries on the 21st. We'll respond to those inquiries on the 25th. Qualification packages will be given on July 2nd. And then selections will be presented to the committee for approval. The Law Ridge levee extension, several weeks ago, we received 30% plans. Later this week, we are scheduled to get 90% plans from GSA, the contractor. So this is just, they're on schedule and they're moving further along on getting those plans going for us. On the Fish Bayou project, we're still waiting on a Clean Water Act permit that we'll need to get with the Corps to see, to get that one going. We've kind of been waiting a while. There's also the agreements that need to be finished between the property owner and the parish, and that will be presented hopefully for approval at the next drainage meeting. This afternoon, we had a LOMR map presentation at the complex, at the parish complex. It was presenting, the LOMR maps that are that the parish had gotten from FEMA on May the 7th. Notifications were made by FEMA in the Ascension Citizen on May 16th and 23rd. There's a 90-day period after that last May 23rd notification that parties can make engineering decisions to, if they want to rebuke some of the LOMR recommendations. This 90-day period ends August 21st. If there's no reconsideration, the maps will become effective September 20th. Of course, all the LOMR maps are on the parish website, and Brian Martinez of our IT section did a great job, I thought, in making those maps easily understandable. He also made the paper maps that we presented to the public that were nice and clear, much clearer than what FEMA gave to us. And that's it.
Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, Joey, real quick, on the firm maps, are we planning on sending out notifications to the people affected by that? That's what, 1,200 people?
We got-
1,200 residents?
Yes, we've sent out, with the assistance of our,
GIS?
of well, the, well, the,
Can we just say Brian? With the assistance
Yeah,
of Brian?
Dustin. No, this was, Dustin, was able to.
Dustin with the EOC.
Yeah, EOC group. They were able to send out a message to all of the landlines and an emergency, the cell numbers that are, on
There was
the
like a
emergency
reverse
system.
911, but that was sent out to only the affected?
It was sent out to those in Sorrento because they were given the benefit of a lot of BFE aids. You know, they have lower BFEs in a lot of locations. So it was sent to all of Sorrento, but it was also sent to those adversely affected and those positively affected by the Lomers.
Just in Sorrento or everywhere?
In Sorrento, but also the areas of people that were taken out of the flood zone and also people that were put into the flood zone.
So
in the entire
Sorrento
Loma
plus
area.
all the people that were affected? Is
Yes.
that- I'm sorry,
Yes.
okay.
So that's.
Okay, great. And so we've notified, but not letters, though this is on a reverse 911?
We didn't find letters to be that effective, and it was a lot of trouble to put letters out. That message that's through the EOC was
okay.
was a lot more effective.
Okay, okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyone else for Mr. Joey?
Yeah.
Mr. Kulak?
Yeah, Ron, Joey, whomever, on the off-road ditch cleaning, that, in my area, just keep it up. We still got some pretty serious ditches that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I know everybody's good. And like I said, just keep that up. We, got the ditch that's on side of, Cypress Gold subdivision back there.
Okay, yep, I know where you at.
That one, you got the one across from Benton Frederick Road on Stringer Bridge Road.
We got a
And,
permit applied for that one.
Good deal. And, how about the state, when you're talking about doing up on Stringer Bridge Road right next to, George Lambert?
Yeah, that won't work. I did talk with them. It will not go to George Lambert, but we did cut that ditch on DeLone's property. And I have our engineer sizing a pipe. I've already talked to them about putting the pipe under Stringer Bridge.
Yes.
They're okay with it. We just have to have it engineered and sent in and apply for a permit. So I'll get with you on it, but we're still working on that one.
Well, that's good. So you're going with basically the original
Yes.
discussion that we talked about with State
Yes.
Representative Berthelot and all.
That is it, yep.
Good deal. Thank you, sir.
With no other questions? Thank y'all for your report. We'll move on into general business. Number 7, Wallace Acre Subdivision Drainage Improvements Project. Before we get to you, Ms. Jones, I really wanna thank the commission here for choosing Wallace Acres as a pilot program on this. I also want to thank all the residents, and especially Miss Wanda Martin. She kind of heads up Wallace Acres. I'd like for her to come up to the podium, please. She helped me with a lot of the right-of-way and different things in this subdivision, and it was not an easy task in the beginning. We've had meetings at the fire station. We're trying to get everyone on board. And this is the end result for, I guess, about 8 months now that we have been dealing with this. And I really want to thank everyone in Wallace Acres for helping us push this along. And look, I apologize. I know it's 9:15, but thank y'all for coming out. Miss Wanda, if you can add anything, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, for the past couple of years, we have been having problems in Wallace Acres. We're all aware of the new subdivision that was built, it was also built where no right-of-way did this subdivision have to have. All the right-of-way is on Wallace Acres side. So that means all the water flows from that subdivision to Wallace Acres. Wallace Acres has its own problems. Its ditches need to be cleaned. There's culverts that need to be taken care of. This last rain that we had 4 houses that flooded. It's getting to where every time we have a rain, whether it is 1.5 inches or it's 4.5 inches, someone is flooding. Back where I live, I mean, I've got my own little mini farm. I have lost chickens. I have lost ducks. I have peacocks that I sell at $300 and $400 a piece that I lose, the eggs, because of water. The water comes up to about 1.5 feet in my yard. This last time, it got all the way to the slab of my husband's shop. No, it did not get in my house. I was very thankful. But other people in Wallace Acres, it did. This pilot program, I think is really, really good. I have looked over the everything that was proposed to the contractors. I think it will help. Is it gonna solve all the problems? I don't know. But I really believe that this pilot program is gonna help Wallace Acres a whole lot. I mean, we have ditches that stay with stagnant water to where we have neutral rats crawling in and out of people's side of their houses because that's where they're living. The kids come up to you with a snake and you look at it and think they think it's a garden snake or some kind of egg eater snake. And you look at the head and it's a water moccasin. This is all from water staying in these ditches that's not draining anywhere. And we need the help. This pilot program needs to be started. We need to get going on it. In fact, I got paperwork out from some of the neighbors. They signed the right-of-way exactly 1 year ago today. So it has taken 1 year to even approach a pilot program. So I am asking that we go ahead with this pilot program and help Wallace Acres out. I'm one of the last houses on the end. If anybody's going to suffer from all this water coming back through Wallace Acres, it's going to be me. But it's also going to mean that 4 or 5 houses that people have to keep replacing their sheetrock, their floors, and everything is not going to happen anymore. Yes, I might have a shed that's going to flood, but my house is not going to flood. But I'm going to be having a lot of water put on me from Wallace Acres. But I think with the program that they're asking, they're going to get it out of there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wanda.
All righty.
Ms. Jones?
On May 13, 2019, the Purchasing Department received 5 bids for the Wallace Acres subdivision drainage improvements. After review, the East Ascension Drainage Department recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Mitchell Contracting Incorporated and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service, and they had $1 million approved budget.
Moved by Mr. Johnny,
Second.
second by Ms. Terry. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Any
Bid, it's come in pretty good.
And Ron and both Joey reviewed. Everything went good with the bid. Any opposition to the motion? None? Motion passed. Thank you. Move on.
On May 31st, 2019, the East Ascension Drainage Department received a proposal from Quality Engineering to provide professional construction observation services for Wallace Acres subdivision project. It is the recommendation of EA administrative staff to seek your approval and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service, and it has a $30,000 budget.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Lambert,
Second.
second by Mr. Kluwat. Discussion, Mr. Dawson.
Ms. Shivers, is there only one response to this? Or is there only one consideration? Were there other people that proposed?
No, sir, it was just,
Just the one?
it was under the threshold that we require. The
What is
RF
the amount? I looked for that, I couldn't.
Look on the second.
30,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna oppose this. Not because I think, it's necessary, something to be done in this project. However, I'm experiencing some large problems with this company in Pelican Crossing, filings 4 through 6, that, I just can't reward them. Thank you.
Mr. Sadler, still discussion.
Yes, I'm going to have to concur and throw my lot in with Councilman Dawson. This company, reported by the media today, unless it's inaccurate, and if it is, please correct me, that both the Brookstone and Camellia Cove subdivisions in which this company had involvement was cited for violations of our sediment control rules and regulations. And so I really question if we go through with this contract tonight, are we having the fox guarding the hen house? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, likewise, I have the people in Brookstone subdivision, the people that border that, which is Parker Road, and everybody along that road is now having water inundating their yards, their structures. Some people had a sandbag around their pools last week. I've been up there 3 times now, and this has been ongoing, and this should not happen. I mean, it's inexcusable that these people have lived there for 25, 30 years, have never had an issue with water coming into their yards and into their structures, yet this new subdivision that they're building is supposedly engineered to prevent this, yet water is now flowing into structures, almost into swimming pools. It's not right to do this to these people, so I'm also opposing this.
Anyone else? We have 3. Mr. Kluwat.
I'd like to ask somebody in the administration, Ron, you guys, have y'all reviewed this? William?
Well, excuse me. Originally, Wallace Quality was the design engineer that designed the project for Wallace Acres a year or 2 back. So they were the engineer that came up with the solutions to this, and we was gonna allow them to make sure that it gets built to what they designed it to improve the area.
Good deal. So y'all reviewed it, y'all good with this?
All right, Ms. Lewis, we have 3, so roll call vote.
Councilwoman Cazo?
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
No.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Nope.
Councilman Satterly?
No.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
All right, with that being said, motion carries. Thank y'all for everyone for coming out from Wallace Acres. Appreciate y'all, and we'll start this project. On number 9, approval of substantial completion. Mr. Ron.
Approval of substantial completion of Marvin Bro Gearbox Number 3 repair project. That project is now complete.
Motion.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Cluett. Discussion. Any opposition? Not. Motion passed. Number 10, change order number 1. Mr. Joe.
Orders for Ascension Parish Drainage Improvement Project, Savoy, Penny, Shealy, and Riverside Estates was Hard Rock Construction. This was in order to put sod and hydro seeding to make the project dress a lot better and
Motion.
less
Second.
erosion.
Moved by Mr. Cluett, second by Ms. Terry. Any discussion on the motion? Any opposition? Not. Motion passed. Number 11, Mr. Jordan.
Motion.
Change order 2, and it was a final balancing change. It resulted in the reduction amount of
Motion.
$39,078.16.
Second by Mr. Lambert, that's your district. Any opposition? Motion passed. Number 12, certificate of substantial completion.
Certificate of substantial completion for the Ascension Parish Drainage Improvement Project, Savoy Road, Penny, Shealy, and
moved.
Riverside Estates with Hard Rock Construction.
Moved by-
Project was completed.
Moved by Ms. Terry, second by Mr. Lambert. Any opposition to the motion? None. Motion passed. Number 13 is discussion of a letter of map revision. That's for Mr. Joe.
As mentioned earlier, we had the exhibit of the maps. They were presented from 5 to 6 p.m. This afternoon for the public to look at. As mentioned earlier, it was sent out to, with the help of our EOC department, to the 1,200 properties that were helped, but there's also the 300 plus people that were put into flood zones. All of those people, it was an attempt made to get in touch with those people as well as the entire town of Sorrento. Sorrento was included because a lot of those areas had a lower BFE value.
You finished with that?
Yes, sir.
Discussion, Mr. Cluett.
Yeah, Bill, we've had plenty of discussion. You feel good about the communication of how people?
No,
would get-
absolutely. This time it sounds like we took care of it. So
There was a lot of discussion with you and Travis. I remember, trying to get the word out to people, good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah. No, I think we did more than our part with the notification, sounds like.
Good
Do we
deal.
need to, is there something we need to do
We
here,
gotta
or
vote on
is this
this,
just
or what?
for information only?
No, we're just in that waiting period for,
Okay.
the public to do
Public
any,
comment.
if anybody wants to do an engineering study, which is very tough to do, but you have, a time frame for that, but if nothing else happens, September 20th is whenever these maps will become official.
Okay.
The most important thing is for the people who are going to be in the flood-prone areas to buy flood insurance now.
Before,
When it's cheaper.
Well, those that changed, right, those that
Right.
were out and are now
Yeah,
in, they
yeah.
grandfather, that's a good point. That's why I'm wondering, well, that's okay. Can talk offline.
Yeah, that's the people that will be put into a flood zone. They'll get a
Right.
preferred rate if they do it before that
Correct.
September 20th deadline.
Yep.
So I think it would be nice if we made sure they were,
Yeah.
made sure they knew that.
yeah.
That's, what is that, that's 200 or so?
300.
A little over 300.
300, okay.
I
We
would
can
love
send
to
a
see
letter.
some
We
kind
can
of
send a
mail
letter
going
to
to
them
them.
all. In fact, we discussed,
You have sent a letter?
no, we discussed just going to a professional service and having them send a letter.
That
to make
would
sure
work.
they
Yeah.
get delivered.
Or call them. I mean, we can't let this slip by.
I take Mr. Councilman Turner's suggestion to heart. I think everybody that is going to be affected and needs to get the preferential flood insurance, I think we ought to send them a registered
Yeah.
letter.
I'm for that.
All right, any other discussion on this? The map, everything's good for the information that we have here. With that, we'll move on to number 13. I'm sorry, number 14, executive session.
Motion second.
Roll call, Mr. Secretary.
I think this is a record roll calls.
Councilwoman Cazo?
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Chairman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Satterlee?
Yes.
And Councilman Turner?
Yes.
think there might have been.
Motion to reconvene, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Motion to reconvene by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Lambert. Mr. Bill,
Okay, so I move that we authorize our attorney to request from the town of Sorrento a detailed list of ditches that they need to be cleaned as part of a project, so we can enter into an intergovernmental agreement with them.
Or we can consider it.
So we can consider entering into an intergovernmental agreement. I knew I wouldn't get it all right.
by Mr. Bill.
Second.
Second by Ms. Terry. Any opposition to the motion? None, motion passed.
Motion
Number
to
Mr.
adjourn.
15 to authorization.
Oh,
One more thing,
I
15.
thought that was it.
No, you got one more.
That is for authorization to bid property. Mr. Matiza. Mr. William Daniels.
Look like. That's to go out for a cattle lease. Did y'all read it? Is that what it is?
Cattle lease?
Yeah.
So
A
cattle,
cattle
permission to lease the land, cattle lease for the back of Astraland.
That's the
So
land that we
moved.
own?
Moved
Yes,
by
sir.
Mr.
Second.
Johnny, second.
I had,
Not Terry. Second by
You
me.
made the second, Mr.
I
Terry?
had the motion.
All right,
Second.
you had the
Johnny had the
motion,
second.
second by Mr. Johnson. Any opposition to the motion? None? Motion passed. Number,
Motion to adjourn.
moved by Mr.
There you
Sherman.
go.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sadler, second by Mr. Lambert.